The total annual financial losses to the government from fraud are estimated to be between $233 billion to $521 billion per year, according to the Government Accountability Office's report in 2024. And I think that unless you are actively trying to commit fraud, we can all agree that fraud is bad, and we want to get that number as close to zero as reasonably possible. Part of those hundreds of billions of dollars includes Social Security fraud, which is a hot topic given today's environment. This channel does not take political sides. This is not a politically motivated video. This is strictly to help you watching understand how these things all work so that you can make better decisions. If we boil down Social Security fraud to its most basic idea, it is somebody collecting government money when they are not entitled to it at all, or they are entitled to less than what they are collecting. An example of collecting money when not entitled to it would be if somebody is dead, but their family is still collecting Social Security payments. That is Social Security fraud. If you've ever seen the fictional TV show Shameless, Frank Gallagher's character is guilty of this. This has also been a massive discussion after Elon Musk's tweet of the number of people in the Social Security database who were over 100 years old on up to 360 years old. In my video here, I talked about how the idea that all or even a fraction of these people are receiving Social Security money has been debunked, and some people got angry at me for not showing how, so I will show you in this video. But this is just one of the many areas or ways to commit Social Security fraud that contributes to those hundreds of billions of dollars in taxpayer money. Other ways include identity theft, which is using another person's Social Security number to apply for benefits, work, or government assistance. False statements, which would be making incorrect statements on a Social Security benefit claim form in order to get more or continued payments when you are not otherwise qualified. Spoiler alert, this is one of the biggest areas of Social Security fraud from a dollars and prevalence perspective. This would include when somebody is alive and entitled to receive Social Security benefits, but they are doing things to hide how much they are really earning to make it look like they are earning less or less capable than reality to claim more benefits than they are entitled to receive. So if you take a job and you don't report this additional income, which could otherwise lower your Social Security payments, that is fraud. Another area of fraud would be improper use of funds by a representative payee. This would be if somebody is appointed as the representative payee for a Social Security beneficiary. For example, you are responsible for someone else who is not able to take care of themselves, and then you are using those funds in inappropriate ways. Working under another person's Social Security number is another form of fraud. Buying and selling Social Security cards is considered Social Security fraud. So there are a lot of different forms of fraud out there. And please, this is an official statement from me. Do not commit Social Security fraud. And I want to focus on the very first one that I brought up, which is the dead people's families collecting Social Security money off of 200-plus-year-olds. Is it true? The answer is, if we're looking at 200-year-olds as the number, absolutely not. In fact, we can say with 100% confidence that nobody aged 115 years old or older who is dead is receiving Social Security payments because in 2015, the government updated its systems to automatically declare anyone who turns 115 years old as dead, and payments are shut off. Everyone in the government with positions that touch Social Security payments has known this or should have known this for the past 10 years. Just a fun fact, as of the recording of this video, the oldest living person on Earth is Ina Canbaro Lucas of Brazil. She was born in 1908, and she is coming up on her 117th birthday. One of my favorite human beings on the planet is Kay Crone. She's our oldest subscriber to our channel, who has done a couple of interviews with me on the channel and will be turning 108 here in a month. You can watch her kick my butt in her daily exercises in a video that looks like this, and I'll link to it in the description and at the end of this video. And K is the secret keyword for this video. Back to the point, the good news for me and for you watching is that we do have data available that arms us with a pretty good idea of just how common this kind of Social Security fraud really is. In 2023, the Office of the Inspector General did an audit to look specifically at whether the Social Security Administration had decent systems in place to prevent dead people from receiving Social Security payments, specifically really old dead people. The report found that there were 18.9 million Social Security number holders who were 100 years old or older who did not have death information on their records. Of those, the majority of around 11 million were born in the 1800s. So why are they still showing up in the Social Security database of living people, and why do the majority of those people happen to be born in the 1800s? Well, it's because the Social Security Administration never received death record information, which, as dead people become older, it gets harder to find their death certificates. The government didn't have electronic files in the 1800s or the 1900s all the way up until the 1970s. So tracking all of this down and updating everything is tough and expensive. A similar audit was done in 2015, and it was estimated that it would cost between $5.5 and $9.7 million to go through all of this and properly fix the records. The decision at that time was to not spend that kind of money for this project, and they came up with an easier, less expensive method. As soon as somebody reaches 115 years old, they automatically mark them as dead, and they stop all payments. Is this a perfect system? No. Is it cheap to implement? Yep. Is it effective? Well, I'll show you. I've linked to all of these reports in the description of this video, by the way. It is all public information, and I need to make a disclaimer here. Again, this is such a hot political topic. If you truly believe that your side is never wrong and is always right, then you're being manipulated. Okay, I think we can all agree that there are tens of millions of people in the Social Security database who are over the age of 100. Hopefully, we can also agree that nobody at or over the age of 115 years old who is dead or their families are committing Social Security fraud and receiving improper payments because they are automatically stopped for anyone who reaches that age with or without death certificate information. Both of these statements can be true at the same time. So what about those under 115 years old? How prevalent is that kind of fraud of somebody dying and their family collecting Social Security payments? Well, of the 18.9 million people who are 100 years old or older and listed as alive in the Social Security database, only about 44,000 people are receiving Social Security payments. There are more frequent audits that happen each year that break down how many people of each age are receiving Social Security payouts. At the end of December 2024, we have 89,106 people in the U.S. aged 99 or older who are collecting Social Security payments. In 2024, the U.S. Census Bureau estimates about 101,000 people are age 100 or older in the United States. So our numbers are well within the realm of reasonable and realistic. The 89,106 number includes 99-year-olds. Our 44,000 number of people receiving Social Security payments did not include 99-year-olds. It was just for 100 or older. From 95 up to 98, there is a slowly rising percentage of folks who pass away, going from 24% to 26% to 31%. I use 33% from 98-year-olds to estimate about 33,000 99-year-olds still alive and collecting Social Security benefits. Subtract that from our $89,000 number, and we are at about 56,000 individuals, 100 or older, who are collecting Social Security benefits of the estimated 101,000 100-plus-year-olds still alive. So we have about 56,000 collecting benefits as opposed to the 44,000 who were supposed to be collecting benefits in 2023. A difference of about 12,000 people. If we were wanting to be even more accurate in our estimations, I would probably reduce that 12,000 people number just a little bit, as there are presumably more people who are over the age of 100 today than there were in 2023, but we'll just use the 12,000 assumption of the number of potentially fraudulent people collecting Social Security benefits between the ages of 100 and 115. The average monthly check would be less than this, but we will put it at about $1,700 a month, or just over $20,000 a year. That equates to about $240 million, not billion, but $1 million a year in Social Security fraud due to people collecting benefits off of 100-plus-year-old dead people. That is a lot of money to you and to me as an individual, but as a percentage of the low end of $233 billion in fraud that we started this video with, it is 0.1% of the fraud happening out there. So in a weird way, it doesn't really matter if there are 18.9 million people over the age of 100 in the record, in the database of Social Security. What matters is how many of them are receiving Social Security money, and then of those, how many of them are no longer alive and thus fraudulently receiving benefits. Could there still be people collecting money from dead relatives, including 100 to 115 years old, but also under 100? Yes, but it is not the tens of millions of people as you may have heard. This is just a microcosm of the Social Security fraud that exists, but it is not where I think a lot of people hoped that they're going to be finding hundreds of billions of dollars. The electronic record keeping, while it is not perfect, has been improving since the 70s. Most funeral homes I know actually handle all of this. A funeral home handles the death certificate and then notifies Social Security automatically. That wasn't happening in the 1800s or most of the 1900s. Now, a quick shift to a different kind of Social Security fraud, and then we'll be done. One of the other categories was overpayment of Social Security benefits to those who are entitled for benefits, but they're collecting too much. This happens when people do not report the truth about how much income that they are earning. This can happen if people lie to make it look like they are paying for their own housing, as an example, even though they are living with a relative or someone else and they're not really paying. And these examples are where the majority of Social Security overpayment fraud actually happens. Some more figures for you. In 2024, an Office of the Inspector General Audit found that the Social Security had made about $71.8 billion in overpayments of Social Security benefits between the years of 2015 and 2022. So over 8 years, that averages just under $9 billion per year. That represents 0.84% of the total amount of Social Security benefits paid out during that time. That is a lot of money. That is a lot more than the $240 million potentially lost to dead people over 100 years old by about 3,650%. Let's take a step back now. Social Security fraud exists. Medicare fraud exists as well, to the tune of about $32 billion per year. Again, unless you are committing this fraud, I think that we can all agree that this is wrong and it should be stopped. We want this to be as close to zero as possible. In order to further prevent and better enforce these things, what would it take? Well, it would actually take more oversight, more government bureaucracy and hoops to jump through just to get the benefits, and then continue to prove that you are still alive or entitled to maintaining those benefits. More checks on you, more verifications around when you were born or die, or changes to your housing or employment or disability situations. More cost to establish these digital systems or the physical people to accomplish these checks and balances. And then to have all of these extra checks and verifications be effective, you would need to have even more penalties and punishments and people in place to further discourage others from trying these illegal things. Social Security fraud and Medicare fraud are already illegal and carry significant punishments. Both are generally considered felonies with penalties including jail time for up to 5 years and fines of up to $250,000. So the government would need to better monitor everyone, including those who are not doing anything wrong, as well as those who are doing the bad stuff, in order to catch the criminals. And then not just catch them, but enforce the penalties. I think some people like this idea of more oversight. I think others do not. And some of those who do not want bigger government maybe don't fully see what the repercussions are of what the implementation of more oversight and more enforcement actually means. As you hear and you watch messaging coming out around this topic of Social Security fraud or Social Security benefits in general or Medicare, I just hope that we all keep in mind the real problem, the scope of that problem, and what would it take to solve that problem within a reasonable level of acceptable outcomes. I leave secret code words in my videos to help me manage the comments. People try to guess or assume a lot about me and leave pretty nasty comments, given that I talk mostly about government benefits like Medicare and Social Security. It's easier for me to filter through the negative comments of people who didn't watch the full video if I can see that they didn't include the secret code word. I mentioned the secret word earlier in the video. It is my dear friend Kay, and you can watch my video with her back when she was only 106 years old right here. You won't want to miss her putting me through her daily exercise routine. I will see you over there.